Necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And hello, K-Man, and welcome to another episode of Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon, and welcome to Straight Talk. How are you today, Mr. Harris?
Honestly, my friend, I'm a little annoyed today.
Now, who could have annoyed my colleague?
Well, actually, it wasn't.
Let me at him.
I know, right?
Hold me back.
It was, well, it kind of was a who, but it was more a what. It was very, very warm outside today, particularly when I was expecting it to be just the opposite, very cool and wet.
Oh, don't mess with Austin's weather.
I tell you that, and I suppose if there was a who to be upset with, it would have to be the Kevin Allen's Weather Service. Because yesterday they forecast, and of course when they forecast, I'm going to say they promised a 60% chance of rain would fall today, and I believed them. And I reported on it, and I urged people to come out and bring their umbrella. And today, unless you notice some rain that I may have missed, from early this morning, there wasn't a rain cloud in the sky. As the day progressed, it just got bluer and bluer, and with that, it got hotter and hotter, and no rain. So I'm a little annoyed.
Well, the positive side of it is that people would still have needed the umbrella.
Quite right.
For the sun.
That's right. So it wasn't a total waste, and that is certainly how we shall defend ourselves to those persons who packed the umbrella, because Straight Talk told them to do so last night. It wasn't a total waste. If you did go outside today, you probably used that umbrella to, as my colleague said, block out the sun, though it probably didn't help much because it just probably meant you were warm now under an umbrella. But it was humid, very humid. I believe the heat index was, I think that was the only part of the weather forecast yesterday they got right. Remember us commenting that it would be a 60% chance of rain, but they put the heat index at around 105 degrees.
So they got that part right.
Yeah, I was having a hard time reconciling between the two. It's going to rain, but still feel like 105? How is that possible? So anyway, I'm guessing somebody did an old cut and paste and forgot that they, perhaps forecast 60% of showers when it was probably closer to 20% if it was not 0%.
Or 6%. Who added that zero?
I don't know who added that zero, but somebody should be flogged, tarred, and feathered and kept away.
Apparently you've done that already.
Computer forecasting.
Apparently you've done that already. Hopefully they're smiling.
I hope so.
Hopefully they're smiling. Yes, USOB.
That's right.
Sweat, Negro.
They'll probably say, the one day I get it wrong and this guy's got to put it all over the radio.
Just sing that song, I believed in you. There you go.
We did believe in you.
We do. We still believe in you.
We still believe in you. So let's take a look at what we can expect weather-wise. Again, compliments of the Cayman Islands National Weather Service. And by the way, these guys get annoyed if you give a weather report that outlines local weather and you don't quote these guys. If you don't quote it and get it wrong, they go, hang on, we're National Weather Forecast. They particularly hate it when it's like tropical storm or hurricane time.
And you don't mention.
And you don't use the National Weather Service. If I were to use one of my other Mr. Weathermans or, even
someone from somewhere else.
Someone from somewhere else, you might even get an email.
Oh, fair enough.
Vis-a-vis the governor's office.
Keep it local, Austin.
Yes.
But I guess in that line, then it's only fair that you mention their name when they get it wrong.
Quite right. That's exactly what I was thinking.
That's what you were thinking.
You were a brilliant man, Ellio Solomon. That's why you and I
work with you Monday through Fridays, Austin.
I tell you that.
What else could happen?
It must rub off.
It rubs off.
It does. Well, your weather synopsis for the next 24 hours suggests that residual moisture that is lingering from a tropical wave that made its way across the Western Caribbean will continue to interact with an upper level low, allowing for some showers and isolated thunder showers through the next 24 hours, though we are still waiting on the latter. Light winds and seas are expected to prevail. Doppler radar images show isolated showers in and around the Cayman area, moving towards the west-northwest. So what does all of that mean in English? Well, tonight, partly clear, becoming cloudier later, with a 40% chance of now, what? Now they're giving you tonight's forecast, but telling you there's a 40% chance of early morning showers and some thunder. Wouldn't that kind of fit more on the tomorrow's forecast? Anyway, I don't write this stuff. I just read it. Temperatures will fall to the low 80s. Winds will be out of the east at 5 knots or less, becoming light to variable at times. Seas will be slight with wave heights of 1 to 3 feet. Tomorrow, partly cloudy skies, becoming cloudy at times with a 40% chance of showers and some thunder. No mention of early morning showers there, I just say. Temperatures will rise to the low 90s with a heat index of near 106. So again,
there's that 6 again, Austin.
There's that 6 again.
Note the 6.
Note the 6. And of course, the 40% chance of rain tomorrow. Anyway, we'll flip the die. We'll flip the coin and see what happens. Winds will be out of the east to southeast at 5 to 10 knots. Seas will be slight with wave heights of 1 to 3 feet. All I can tell you is, if you brought that umbrella to work today, keep it in your car.
You know what people are thinking now.
Because worst case scenario, as my colleague pointed out, it's good for sun just as good as it is for rain.
Yeah, trust me.
Hang on to it. The outlook calls for similar weather conditions to continue all the way through until Friday morning. And just in case you missed it, today is hump day. Today's Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, the 9th of July. Yeah, got it. That was as much as we always say for me as it was for all of you, because I do tend to get lost on these.
So let me just see if I got this right. We were supposed to get extra. Okay. We were supposed to get rain on hump days. What you're saying to me? So today you're complaining.
Yeah,
right?
Today I'm complaining. Today we should. Yeah, exactly, Ellio. Thank you for making that observation.
I'm just working on it.
It was supposed to be a beautiful, beautiful
supposed to be
day.
a wet hump day.
Exactly.
People are thinking, why?
It turned out to be an awfully dry one and kind of miserable at the process, which really, takes away from the significance of this day of the week.
People are just listening to us say, there they go again.
They're singing
adrift.
The two of them need Jesus so bad. As sure as Christ came and saved the sinners, the two of them need to go to church.
Whoever knew that during the weather could be so much fun.
Quite right.
So either way, we were supposed to have a nice precipitous sweat hump day. But it turned out to be a bit dry.
Gonna be a bit dry.
At least Austin isn't asking to win and how's things on their front.
No. I learned my lesson.
You learned your lesson from
yesterday. I'm not gonna go there again, buddy. Not gonna go there again.
No, you'll learn. I
will. Well, the phone lines are open. It's gonna be another open mic Wednesday, open mic hump day, as the case may be. The phone lines and studios are open. 745-2626 is the number. If you want to call in and, I don't know, add to our evening babble, maybe even shake your finger at us saying, boys, you need to do better. Or if you want to perhaps suggest a topic or ask a question, well, the floor is yours. If you want it, take full advantage. Also, you can reach out to us on our WhatsApp number, 928-2562. And from there, you got two choices. You can either send us a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message. And last but not least, you can write to us at our email address, host@straighttalk.ky. We are, of course, as always, broadcasting live on your radio dial, Bobo 103.1 FM, and likewise simulcasting live. And I'm just looking over my shoulder. The internet connection is strong. Our kung fu today is strong, Ellio. On this side, anyway.
Japanese speak from diaphragm.
From diaphragm, exactly.
Yeah,
Kojima.
You sound much better than me. You got more diaphragm, I think, Austin.
I think you might be right.
Yeah.
Subtle with that one, though. I give you that.
Buddy. No, I meant that in a very complimentary manner.
Simulcasting live on YouTube and Facebook with the key search words, Straight Talk Radio Show. You can also find us at the ACT Cruise Tourism Facebook page. Thank you, ACT, for sticking with us and allowing us to, well, frankly, piggyback off of your platform so that we can reach as many persons as would like to otherwise tune us in on a weekday evening. So that is how you can reach us. Again, open mic all the way until 6:30, so don't be shy. If you got something you want to say,
Get it off your chest.
get it off your chest. Exactly. Don't carry that home with you.
We see our friend called us yesterday, and then what she raised, that ended up carrying on the topic for the whole day.
She certainly did.
That's how it works.
She has a way of guiding us, where she wants us to go. But I think, again, just the power of the listening audience has over us. So, again, if you've got a topic that's really, really
burning
you, then by all means, share the burn, and we will offer some soothing balm to your affliction.
I mean, lightning bomb.
Exactly, indeed. We got a bunch of good news today, which might actually spill over into 5 o'clock, friend of mine. Let's start with the first one, because yesterday we were talking about the Constitutional Commission, and we inadvertently suggested it may be tied to the Commission on the Standards of Public Life. But what we were really doing, Ellio, was seeing the future into today's headlines, albeit
But we are indeed visionaries.
we are visionaries, even more so than we give ourselves credit for.
Oh, wow.
So with that visionary vision, we see today that Woody Foster will be 4-year tenure. So theoretically, he'll have 3 years as chairman if you stick to his appointment schedule. So congratulations to Mr. Woody Foster. I can't think of a better individual to lead that very important organization. And again, we just simply count on them to do their jobs. Acting Governor Franz Manderson said on Tuesday that Foster's chairmanship and the appointment of 3 other members to the board, which is tasked with the upholding of standards of integrity and accountability in the public service. The other new members include lawyer Tanisha Williams, Tonicia. How would one pronounce that? Tanisha?
Spell it again.
Tonicia. Tanisha?
From here, without seeing it, sound like Tanisha.
Tanisha. All right. Williams is her last name. The other one we are very familiar with, a colleague, if you will, in broadcasting radio, but also in media. We have Mr. Jay Earhart.
Oh, wow.
Who spent more than 2 decades in the media as well as in the tourism industries in Cayman. He was, I think, formerly chairman of the Cayman Islands Tourism Association before he may have made his retirement. And also, speaking of retirement, we have retired accountant Diana Dioprasad. Insolvency expert Keith Blake has been reappointed, having served for a previous term, now, of course, going into his second term. So we got Woody Foster as chair, Tanisha Williams, Jay Earhart, Diana Dioprasad, and Keith Blake rounding off the membership for the new Commission for Standards in Public Life. So congratulations to each of those persons for the opportunity, if not the honor, of serving on this very, very important public sector watchdog board and body, and we have no doubts that they will do a fine job. A fine job.
Agreed.
Also, but now in sports. Now, we talked about this on Friday as we headed into the long weekend, but the good news is the Cayman Under-17 Storm basketball team went undefeated in this weekend's past inaugural Hoop Fest. According to the Cayman Compass today, the Cayman Islands Hoop Fest concluded on Saturday, the 5th of July, and crowning its first ever champion for the inaugural event. The 3-day international tournament, which was held at the Cayman Bay Arts Center, that's the Arts and Recreation Center, as well as at the John Gray High School Gymnasium between the 3rd and 5th of July, showcased elite youth basketball talent from the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, and the United States, delivering thrilling matchups and fostering significant development opportunities for local athletes. If I can just stick a pin there for a second, when was the last time you drove along Walker's Road?
Today.
Today, did you see that beautiful new field that the John Gray High School now has unveiled, now that they've taken down that, I guess, that green privacy screen that was along the fence line. What used to be the bus parking lot is now a beautiful, I would dare say, World Cup, if not Olympic size football field.
And so John Gray now is this now what used to be, wasn't that like Sci-Fac or something?
No, Sci-Fac was towards middle school way, around Academy way. This is the old Cayman.
The old John Gray. Well, I mean, I kind of know it as John Gray.
Yeah,
too,
John Gray is the old Cayman.
But no, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
My only excuse could be, Austin, is I was focused on the road.
Yeah, directly, if you drive along Walker
So where
Road,
the buses used to be.
Where the buses used to be. So basically on the boundary line with Cayman Prep, right next door there, they've got, really a gorgeous
Cayman Prep's
AstroTurf
football field is on the same side as well. So that's just about opposite each other.
Exactly. Quite right.
Okay, cool.
Quite right. But it's a beautiful, beautiful field. Congratulations to the government. I know this this development and this plan for the John Gray Field was going into what? Got to be in excess of 10 years since the original plan rolled off the architect's table. And, of course, the government achieved budget financing for it. But the field has what, by all indication, looks like it's being completed. It looks great. Obviously, there's still a bit more work to be done in terms of stands and some of the aesthetics. But check it out if you haven't been on Walker's Road lately. Anyway, back to basketball. The final day of the inaugural Hoop Fest, kicked off with a offensive explosion from the Texas Tigers, who dominated the Cayman Bulldogs, a very young team, making their international tournament debut with a staggering 115-46 victory. Staggering. That's somebody got spanked.
Were you ever good at basketball?
No. You know what? That's the funny thing. I always had the height for it, but basketball was never my thing. I guess it had to do with the dribbling and the whole hand-eye.
The fact that I had to move.
Yes, that's it. That's it. That was not working.
I was
for me
good at
all.
basketball. It was just the moving part.
That was always a challenge, and I couldn't master the walking and dribbling and passing the ball between my legs, so I couldn't look cool at it.
Too much coordination. Way too much.
Too much going on. I had to find something else to do. I was great at swimming, but I can float, so hey, makes sense.
That works.
Texas guard Sino Nagan delivered a tournament high 53 points, shooting nearly 70% from the field and securing 5 3-pointers in that 115-46 victory. The tournament finale saw a commanding performance by the Cayman Under-17 Storm team, who secured their undefeated 3-0 record with an 84-53 win over Jamaica's Campion College. The final standings saw the Cayman Under-17 Storm atop the list, followed by the Texas Tigers, who were 2-1 for the weekend, and the Campion College Crocs at 1-2, with the Cayman Bulldogs rounding off the table at 0-3. So the Cayman Bulldogs, again, in their defense, probably one of the more younger member teams of the entire tournament, making their debut in international play. But clearly, I think they learned a valuable lesson and can't wait till their next opportunity out. The champion team of the Cayman Under-17 Storm consisted of Derek Ebanks, Amari Latham, Griff McDonald, O'Brien Wilson, Tehran Timoil, Teroy Timoil, so Tehran Timoil and Teroy Timoil. Parents, what are you doing with your children? We have Liam Ramon, Seymour.
Hold on. Whatever happened to Mike? John.
Well, whatever happened to Leroy? We got Teroy, but what happened to Leroy? We didn't like the L? I don't know. Dimitri Seymour, Caden.
Creativity, buddy. Creativity.
Barbaram, George Brooks, and Naziah Webb. Derek Ebanks of the Storm was deservedly named the MVP of the tournament. So congratulations to the Cayman Under-17 Storm for taking the Hoop Fest, pardon the pun, by storm, winning the tournament 3-0, not losing a single game, and posting some very clearly crowd-pleasing numbers. It certainly was an event not to be missed. And if you did miss it, well, hopefully you won't miss next year's event. But there you go. That is in the good news category. And I suppose we have, well, like I said, it's all good news today, buddy. We've got a new Auditor General.
I love good news.
I know you do. I know you do. And it's the sharing of the good news that he's never complains if Austin does the talking.
No.
Never complains. Go ahead. You handle it, man. You handle it.
Especially if it's especially if it's reading though.
You save the good stuff for me.
I'm telling you, when I start reading, my eyes go cross, right? I start going on different lines. Like, Austin, Ellio, you're not there yet. And then I start thinking about it. That's the worst part. Okay, my mind's already churning. Like, this isn't making sense.
You're thinking about it. Yeah.
I like
to think. It's surprising because you are a prolific reader.
I love to read.
You do.
But if you ever see me read, though, sometimes I read like a page,
and you stop and you think about it. What was the author trying to convey
and actually,
in that sentence, I wonder?
In the spirit of transparency. Even when I would go to like a little lecture, I guess I'm calling it lecture, but it could just be someone, speaking about anything generally. I always have to fight it because I will tune in, on something that they've said.
Yeah.
And then it's like the clouds are coming over me right now. I'm thinking about that. And I'll just miss the rest of the speech.
They might as well be saying blah, blah,
yes.
blah, blah, blah,
so
blah. That's all you hear.
Yeah, I have to just mark that sucker down.
Yeah, make a note.
I'll get back to you, and I have to fight it. It's a fight thing because I immediately start thinking about that. Like, that's a good point.
I see.
And then an hour later, you go, damn, I missed the rest. So
I'm sure it was a riveting speech.
I learned that earlier, so I have to fight it. And that's what I like about today's technology, which we didn't have when I was a kid. But, you can put it in pause, right?
Yes.
Let's pause that lecture for a moment. Let's talk about that for a moment.
As we ponder, and then we'll come back to that.
No, you understand what I'm coming.
Now you can even pause live TV. How about that science?
That's
for
it.
You?
There's it.
Well, sticking with the good news category, 55 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock, giving us about 5 minutes before we have to take a break. Let's see how far I can get. Cayman Finance has launched a graduate training program. The summer is here. That means, of course, a lot of our young, brilliant minds, particularly those going off to university, should be returning home and doing, obviously, that all-important intern work. But Cayman Finance says it's launching a graduate training program aimed at supporting Caymanian university graduates seeking to enter the financial services industry. The organization says the initiative is designed to bridge the gap between academic achievement and professional career opportunities by pairing graduates with small and medium-sized Cayman Finance member firms. It noted that the launch of the program is the culmination of many months of research, which aim to understand the challenges around creating entry-level jobs for Caymanian graduates. It added that the research also showed that as a result of 2 decades of weak growth combined with industry consolidation, there are now, trivia moment, only around 15 large financial service firms left in the Cayman Islands, while 90% of those firms, according to Cayman Finance, have fewer than 10 employees on average. So they're smaller, more agile, more nimble to meet the changing financial climate, but no longer, concerned with being the behemoths of the old big banking organizations.
That was a very nice way. That was a very nice way of saying here, but not here.
Right.
And then on top of that, you have to call what's it, Barbados or Trinidad or somewhere to actually get something done too.
Indeed. Well, 14 Cayman Finance member firms have already committed to participating in the program. They include BDO, Catalyst, Denton's, DM Financial, Global Captive Management, Greenlight Re, Grant Thornton Specialist Service, IQ EQ, JTC, More Professional Services, Ralston and Hunter, RF Bank and Trust, Strategic Risk Solutions, and Willis Towers Watson. Each participating employer will offer successful applicants a 1-year fixed-term employment contract, including a probationary period of up to 6 months and a starting salary of $40,000. which research showed was an attractive to most small and medium firms and graduates, whilst in line with the average graduate salary in the UK. Now, again, I want to stick a pause there. The average graduate salary in the UK, but these firms are operating in the Cayman Islands.
Mm-hmm.
If they were to go about and get these jobs, perhaps, full-time jobs, then they'd be making, as university graduates, presumably with a degree, they'd be making a heck of a lot more. But I suppose $40,000 is a good taste. The program is open to Caymanian students who graduate from university in 2025, and the applications are open until the 25th of July. For more information, you can email Danielle Hennings at danielle.hennings@caymanfinance.ky. We have to pause, take a short commercial break, check in with the top news of the hour brought to you by the BBC, but there'll be more Straight Talk coming up next.
Bobo.
BBC News.
BBC News.
World news from the BBC. Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive wind.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat.
Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
A vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world. Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Hello, I'm Moira Alderson with the BBC News. President Trump has announced plans for a 50% tariff on goods from Brazil from the start of next month, amid an escalating row with Brazil's left-wing leader Lula da Silva. David Bamford reports.
In a letter addressed to President Lula, Donald Trump described as an international disgrace the treatment of Mr. Trump's ally, the right-wing former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. He is currently on trial after the Supreme Court in Brasilia ruled there was enough evidence to charge him with plotting a coup after losing the 2022 election. Mr. Trump described the trial as a witch hunt, and he declared he was increasing the tax rate on Brazilian imports to the US from the current 10% to 50%.
Donald Trump has said the United States is shifting from aid to trade in its relationship with Africa as he welcomed 5 presidents from the continent to the White House. The leaders of Liberia, Senegal, Gabon, Mauritania and Guinea-Bissau attended the meeting. Will Vernon has this report.
The economic headwinds on the continent of Africa are intensifying. A combination of Trump trade tariffs and cuts in funding for overseas aid have hit many African economies hard. West African nations are among the worst affected by the reduction in funding. At a meeting with 5 West African presidents at the White House, Donald Trump said he wanted to refocus the relationship between the US and Africa to trade instead of aid. New economic opportunities were being forged, said Mr. Trump, who commended his own decision to close America's overseas aid agency.
A court in South Korea has issued a new arrest warrant for the former President Yoon Suk-yeol over his brief imposition last year of martial law. He was first arrested in January following a lengthy standoff, but he was released 2 months later. Grant Ferrett has this report.
Mr. Yoon's failed attempt in December to impose martial law temporarily destabilised his country and marked the beginning of the end of his presidency. He's since been impeached and is now standing trial for alleged insurrection. If found guilty, he could face life imprisonment or even, in theory, the death penalty. His lawyers had opposed his rearrest, describing it as excessive. But the prosecution said there was a risk that he could destroy evidence if he remained free. Mr. Yoon was taken to a detention centre outside Seoul to hear the court's ruling.
Grant Ferret reporting. The European Union naval force operating in the Red Sea says 19 crew members from a cargo ship attacked off the coast of Yemen are still unaccounted for. 3 are believed to have been killed. The Greek-operated vessel Eternity Sea came under sustained assault on Monday. The US Embassy in Yemen said Houthi fighters had kidnapped surviving crew members. The ship has since sunk. The Houthis have said they carried out the assault. BBC News. The United States is imposing sanctions on the UN Human Rights Council Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese, an outspoken critic of Israel's military offensive in Gaza. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, linked the move to her support for the International Criminal Court, which issued arrest warrants last year for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for alleged war crimes in Gaza. The chief executive of X, Linda Yaccarino, has abruptly quit after 2 years in charge of Elon Musk's social media platform. Her departure was announced a day after Mr. Musk's AI firm faced a public outcry over posts praising Adolf Hitler by its chatbot Grok. With more, here's Chris Valens.
Newspaper reports last year had suggested growing tension between her and Elon Musk, but there was no evidence of that in her post. She thanked Mr. Musk for trusting her to turn the company around and said the best was yet to come for X. Mr. Musk replied with, "Thank you for your contributions." Plenty of space left there for others to write in the leaving card. As to whether she has turned the business around, advertising is up, analysts say, but still well below previous highs.
Emergency teams in Texas are continuing to search for more than 170 people still missing 5 days after devastating flash floods. Officials in Kerr County have again been defending their response. They said hundreds were saved when the Guadalupe River burst its banks on Friday. At least 120 people are known to have died. In football, the current men's European champions, Paris Saint-Germain, have reached the final of the FIFA Club World Cup after thrashing Real Madrid 4-0 in their semi-final. After stunning their Spanish opponents, they'll now face Chelsea in Sunday's final. Meanwhile, at the Women's European Championship in France, are top of their group after beating Wales 4-1. BBC News.
Opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcasting live on YouTube and Facebook under the key search word Straight Talk Radio Show. You can also find us at the ACT Cruise Tourism Facebook page as well, streaming live. Welcome to another episode with your hosts, Ellio Solomon and myself, Austin Harris. The phone lines are open on this open mic Wednesday, a hump day here for the part of the week. No rain outside. Again, still banging on about that. Largely disappointed, really. But the phone lines are open at 745-2626. So if you want to call in and either ask us a question or, like yesterday, perhaps make a statement and take us down a path of discussion, you're more than welcome to do so. You can also reach out to us on our WhatsApp number by dialing 928-2562. And from there, you can either share a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message, and we will share your comments live on air. If email is your thing, you can email us at host@straighttalk.ky. Yesterday, Ellio, we talked about the labor force survey from the fall of 2024. There are a few additional excerpts from that labor force survey. I remember 205 pages of riveting read, and it suggests that the construction industry, or particularly construction jobs, leads the current Cayman job market in postings as far as they're concerned. So let's see if we can find Ellio Solomon Construction Company
I
and
don't
Masters
think so.
on this list. No, I don't think so either. It says the Cayman Islands labor market remained stable in June with 1,500 job postings advertised through the government portal. This was down slightly from 1,505 in May, according to new data from the Workforce Opportunities and Residency Cayman. Construction dominated employment opportunities, accounting for 316 job advertisements, or 21% of all postings during the month. The sector's prominence reflects ongoing development activity across the islands, with laborers representing the single most advertised occupation at 88 postings. The report said that job postings serve as a leading indicator of short-term labor demand as employers signal their hiring intentions. The wholesale and retail trade sector came in second with 237 job postings, representing 15.8% of all labor opportunities, while administrative and support service activities recorded 205 openings, or 13.7%. Carpenters and joiners emerged as the second most sought-after occupation, with 74 postings, followed by stone masons, stone cutters, splitters, and carvers at 44 advertisements. What's a joiner?
Something that joins two things.
I thought maybe you might have a more technical explanation of that.
Well, what is this? Sorry, this is construction you're talking about?
I'm assuming it's a role in the construction trade. So you got carpenters and joiners are the most sought-after occupation.
I don't
know what a joiner is, but
don't know.
To my colleague's point, presumably they join two things together.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I didn't even know what you were talking about there, to be honest with you. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that particular term, joiner.
No. All right.
Sounds familiar. I've heard somebody using it.
Might know what a joiner is.
A joiner.
A joiner. Are you a joiner? Yeah, a joiner. You're a follower. You're not a follower. You're a leader.
A joiner would be a follower, right?
Joiner would be a follower, right? So you're not a follower. You're a leader.
No wonder I don't know what a joiner is.
No wonder. It makes no sense. It's foreign.
Turn your back on them.
The construction heavy demand aligns with the industry's leading position in the overall job creation. And certainly when you look at Cayman's landscape, it's no surprise that development is on the rise. And what is a key component to development, if not construction? Educational requirements revealed that employers are primarily seeking workers with basic qualifications, with 844 job postings, or just over 56% requiring high school or equivalent education. Again, I think that's also promising for much of Cayman's labor force. You would think that, you're looking for bachelor's or our bachelor's degree or higher. But again, according to work, just folks with basic high school education or equivalent, including the GED, is what most workers are seeking in terms of education.
So I got in a moment of elucidation here. So apparently now joiners is another term for persons who do all of the joining. Doors, windows, frames.
Okay.
Also doing cabinetry work, that sort of thing.
Okay. All right.
I can't say I heard that term too often.
No, I cannot. But thank you for that elucidation. We do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Bachelor's degree positions accounted for 280 job postings, or 18%, while certificate or diploma roles registered with 233 opportunities at 15.5%. Experience expectations remain substantial, with 435 job advertisements requiring 5 to 6 years of experience in their relevant discipline, and 431 seeking candidates with 3 or 4 years of background. Only 14 positions required no experience, highlighting challenges for those entering the workforce for the first time. In particular, we think of those high school graduates who chose not to go on to tertiary education, obviously having a bit of a hard time with some of the requirements that of the 1,500 or so jobs that were posted recently. Salary data showed significant variations across sectors, with research and development managers commanding the highest annual compensation at $300,000 per year for research and development. Wow, interesting. Generalist medical practitioners followed at $217,300 per year, while mathematicians, actuaries, and statisticians earned $192,000 on average. The correlation between education and earnings remained pronounced, with master's degree positions offering average annual salaries of $150,000 and above, compared to the $25,000 for high school leaver rules. So again, just like mom and dad always taught you, go and get that education, son. Get that piece of paper. And you will have greater opportunities. Whilst the high school diploma is not to be smirked at, it is still valuable, as is the GED. But for those higher earning categories, that is the first step. You want to get, again, at least a university degree. A bachelor's would be nice. Associate's works. And, of course, master's would be ideal. The good news is, once upon a time, you had to go overseas to get access to
you read my mind, Austin.
Quality degrees, but now you don't have to go anywhere.
This is scary.
As a matter of fact, from John Gray, you literally walk across the sidewalk, if you will, across the quad, if you want to call it as such, and John Gray connects automatically to the University College of the Cayman Islands. So you don't have to go far at all.
Well, what I was going to add to that is the fact that, I mean, even beyond that, the whole issue with the internet, the technology. Again, I remember when I was in computer services many moons ago.
Yep.
We used to order magazines, like they used to have the LAN magazines, LAN for local area network. You know, you studying networking. And by the time you would get your magazine, you know, the other one was already out, if not the other two.
Right.
Because back in those days, you didn't have the internet. But now you have the ability to sit in your home, and if you're really interested in educating yourself, you've got all the access to so many different universities and lectures, and, you know, so there's a lot of things that a person can be doing even on their own in terms of educating themselves. But, of course, in the world that we live in, you always got to get it stamped off by someone, right?
Yep.
It's one thing you say you know it, but somebody has to verify that you know it. I wanted to talk a little bit about this standards in public life, because I know you mentioned that in terms of the new appointments. And I think it'd be good that we all learn exactly what the Standards in Public Life Committee is supposed to be doing. So that would be one. And again, bear in mind that anything I'm saying is not to be reflected on the individuals involved. That's not the objective. The objective is simply to learn about that. The Standards in Public Life Committee, SPLC, plays a key role in ensuring integrity, accountability, and transparency among public officials and public bodies. In the Cayman Islands, this committee was established under the Standards in Public Life law. And here's the breakdown of exactly what it does, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
Main functions of the Standards in Public Life. 1, monitor and promote ethical conduct. Oversees the ethical behavior of people in public life, including politicians, board members, and senior civil servants. Ensures that they uphold standards such as honesty, impartiality, and integrity. You'll obviously have to keep the CPA away from them. You know, they want dishonest people in there, apparently. Number 2, review and maintain. Couldn't resist.
No.
Review and maintain the register of interest. And again, that used to be a specific committee within the parliament. I used to head that up at one point. But that now falls up under the SPLC. So the public officials must declare their financial interests, business ownership, contract, gifts, etc., to avoid conflicts of interest.
And by the way, CPA, which we're referring to, is the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, not the Central Planning Authority. Not to be obviously taken
not
out
to be
of context.
confused. Yes. Thank you very much for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, who visited, I don't know who invited them.
I don't know. But they said, you know, those persons, a.k.a. ex-cons, Let's make them run for office. What a
Right.
good idea. Let's put the foxes in charge of the hen house.
This dishonesty thing apparently is too much for them.
Too much. My
So
God.
we review and maintain the register of interest. Public officials must declare their financial interest, business ownership, contract, gifts, etc., to avoid conflicts of interest. The committee reviews and maintains this register to increase transparency. And by the way, on a somewhat familiar case, without getting into the specifics, you will recall that there was a transaction that took place between two politicians in the last administration.
Of which, you know what, I'm glad you mentioned that, because at the time, the then Standards in Public Life Commission didn't seem to bat an eye at that. They didn't raise any warning flags. They didn't suggest, there was impropriety or it shouldn't have been done. Well, it's almost as if they rubber stamped the whole thing.
I want to get to a point just to that as well, because again, in terms of this, there would have been specific things that took place in those transactions that should have been registered on that register of interest list that wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. And it is, of course, of interest why arguably nothing occurred. Investigate alleged breaches. If someone is believed to have violated the code of conduct, the committee can investigate. This includes breaches like failing to declare interest, accepting inappropriate gifts, or abusing their position.
Yep.
Advise on ethical standards and reforms. Makes recommendations to the government on improving laws or procedures related to ethics in public life. Helps draft or guide codes of conduct for government officials and public boards. Educate and guide public officials. Offers guidance, training, and resources on what is expected under the standards in public life. And again, that would be something we can all look at and say, are you all out there feeling like there's been efforts to really educate you in terms of what the Standards in Public Life Committee does?
Yep.
Probably not. Aims to prevent ethical issues before they happen. And exactly who does it all apply to? It applies to elected members of parliament, appointed board members, heads of departments and senior civil servants, members of statutory authorities and government companies. And again, what is the goal? Public to protect the interests. It's about preventing corruption, promoting accountability, creating a culture of good governance. Now, here's the supplementary comments that I want to make on this. And again, this is not to deal with any one specific individual, but here is something that all of us can run around in our minds. Straight talk, for those who love to think. The question is, can you have a cabinet, and again, like I'm saying, we're not talking about this government. This is not government specific or person specific.
Yep.
Can you have a cabinet that would appoint a standard, the committee, the board members, the committee members, in this particular case to the Standards Public Life Committee? Can a cabinet appoint those persons? And arguably, I'll have to check into all the specific details, but arguably they serve at the pleasure of cabinet, but somehow should be held responsible for keeping them in check. Can you really do that? Because I've seen the same problem, for example, even with HR. And let me digress only to make a point and then skip back. Having served and done HR, we were having this discussion even in one of the other boards that I was just recently on. You have, for example, in the insurance law, a section that clearly puts the pressure, legal obligation on the HR manager to make sure that the medical insurance for the employees are paid. And this is whether it's public or private sector. But yet at the same time, while you put that legal obligation on them, you could see where you might have, particularly in the private sector, you might have a CEO that's trying to balance the budget. Things are just tight. And maybe I need to delay. He or she might say, I need to delay a little bit on this medical insurance payment. I just can't afford it this month. The money's not coming in. And he or she would then lean on the HR manager and say, hey, we got to deal with this. So either or even if it's a separate department, bottom line, it's not being paid, but the HR manager is being held responsible legally. Now, is that fair? That's the question. How can you be held responsible for something when there's someone arguably over you that could be pressuring you to do it, and you depend on that person to give you a good evaluation or to keep you in a job?
Right.
And this is the point I make on HR, just to skip back on the Standards in Public Life Committee. If they're being appointed by a particular group of persons who have just been elected by you and I, who form cabinet, and they sit in that chair at the pleasure of cabinet is the way it would be referred to. In other words, you're there as long as I want you there. Can you really now expect that person or persons, people, to go ahead and say, you know what, yep, I know you put me here, but we're going to hold you accountable for what you just did. And you did a bad job here. You didn't list something on your form. You did something wrong. It's dishonest. It's corrupt. Can you really expect it to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That is an interesting discussion, an interesting thought. Maybe you might want to think about it, because I'm not sure that really works. I think somehow or another, if you're going to be able to create that check and balance, you need to be able to have members on this particular committee and maybe others, including anti-corruption committee, etc. These individuals need to be arguably as independent as possible. It might even be something that the public votes them in the same way as an election. Maybe you put some names on a register. I have no idea. We can talk about that another day. But they need to have a much greater autonomy, because they have to look right now at the person who is putting them there. They have to be able to look that person in the face and say, I know you've just put me here, and you're probably going to want to sack me, but I need to try to deal with you on this corruption issue. I don't think that's going to happen. It's not going to happen. And arguably, we can go back even in the past, just recent past, again, where certain things were required by law. They were required by law to be registered on this register of interest, and they were not. And I don't recall anyone being, publicly brought out for it. So again, that in itself should raise some questions for you. So I think it needs to have greater autonomy, and I don't think that system can possibly work. And I want to stress, I'm not saying this in any way, as my colleague would say, to disparage or to besmirch the good integrity of individuals I'm sure that's serving on the board. But I don't even think you should put someone in that untenable position. You shouldn't put them in that position. You should put them in a position where they have complete autonomy. They know that this guy, that, their salary, nothing is going to be impacted by the same persons. You're talking about holding cabinet, members of parliament. You're talking about civil servants, senior civil servants. Though you have to then be autonomous from those persons. You can't make it that somehow they're going to determine whether you stay or go. You should be able to do that job completely independent. So I think that really needs to be changed up. And like I said, you don't really have to look far. If you go through the legislation, I should probably flag that as something to discuss, because if you look at what occurred recently, let's put it that way, in one of the administrations, not so far, because there was about 3 administrations there, that at the end of the day, there would have been things that was done that meant that the persons felt short of the law.
Well, certainly, I point directly to the last administration, and again, not intending to besmirch any individual, so we'll look at the title and the positions. But there was a sum of money loaned by a then sitting premier to one of his then sitting ministers, whose office was located just 2 doors down from the premier, during a time when that premier was, let's say, embattled. There were questions about leadership takeovers, or in terms that we would understand in this part of the world, talks of a coup, and rumors of a coup were swirling at that time. Some in the media certainly raised objections to this, stating that, well, the timing of the loan did not necessarily occur around about the time of the no confidence motion that was moved in Parliament. But again, let's be clear. Parliament is just by the time that conversation gets to Parliament, you're representing the end, the finish line of that conversation, and Parliament will either accept or reject those conclusions. But those discussions, that wrangling, that, how should we say, night of the short knives, was taking place at the same time that this handover or financial arrangement took place. And it was questionable at best. And at worst, it certainly would have warranted some concerns by the Standards in Public Life Commission, but it did not. And to your point, the role of the commission is to enhance democracy, to ensure oversight of public sector by upholding high standards of integrity and competence in public life. And when you looked at that transaction, when you considered the missing declarations, if you will, particularly in the Register of Interest that sits inside Parliament, that any member of the public can walk in and view. You can't take pictures of it, but you can walk in and take a look at it and leave and, remember it.
Which that arguably probably doesn't make much sense.
That was also, in many cases, some might argue, sidestepped. So it is a question mark for the commission. Are they operating as in the first place, the Cayman Islands Constitution Order 2009 envisioned, because this is where the Public and Standards of Life Commission first got its life, and then, of course, that followed by its own law. But I noted we got about 15 minutes, not even 15 minutes, 15 seconds, so we got to pause.
Yeah, and I have more to say on that.
But we'll continue our conversation on the Standards of Public Life Commission and their role when Straight Talk returns on Bobo 103.1 FM.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo 103.1.
Be prepared. Now is the time to begin planning where you would go and how you would get there if a hurricane was approaching. Your destination could be a shelter or a friend who lives in a well-built home in an area that is not prone to storm surge. Be informed. Make a plan. Be prepared. For more information, visit caymanprepared.ky.
That was a Stingray Media Hurricane Tip brought to you by Foster's.
Storm smart with Foster's this hurricane season. Water is essential for hurricane prep. Ensure you have at least 1 gallon of water per person per day for at least 3 days. Dehydration is a serious risk during emergencies. Stock up at Foster's and ensure you have enough to keep you and your loved ones hydrated throughout a storm. Go to fosters.ky/emergency-checklist for more information. Be safe and get hurricane ready with Foster's to stay ahead of the storm.
Looking for TVs, electronics, sound systems, speakers, gaming consoles, games, and smart home gadgets? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for housewares, small appliances, fans, mini fridges, and cooling? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for baby supplies, toys and games, pet supplies, cleaning supplies, and auto supplies? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for quality produce, grass-fed meats, and groceries? You guessed it. Shop Cost You Less.
Cost You Less is your destination for everything you need on island. Cost You Less. Everyday low prices on items that matter to you.
With you in mind, we have your style. Find what you need down every aisle. You want saving, selection, and quality. That's why we're your home store. The way to make a home. The way to make a home.
Insurance matters. It gives you the confidence to live life as you should, knowing you're protected. As a leading local insurer for over 25 years, Island Heritage has a consistent track record of providing best-in-class customer service with quick and efficient claims processing. This means insurance you can rely on when you need it most. The Island Heritage Way. Visit us online at islandheritageinsurance.com today to learn more about our home, contents, motor, marine, and commercial insurance products. Go on and live your life. With Island Heritage, you can.
When you're on the go, the experienced team at Foster's Pharmacy are here to help. Drop off your prescription while you shop or WhatsApp us and we'll prepare it, ready for your arrival.
Whether you need prescription or over-the-counter medications, blood glucose testing, or advice on vitamins and supplements, we're here early in the morning to late at night. Both of our locations at our Camana Bay and airport stores are open 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday to Saturday.
For more info, visit fosters.ky/pharmacy. Foster's Pharmacy. Better health because we care.
Across Cayman on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority, committed to caring for you. The views and opinions opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcasting live over YouTube and Facebook under the key search words Straight Talk Radio Show. Welcome back. We're your hosts, Ellio Solomon and myself, Austin Harris. And prior to the break, we were engaging in a little, on the one part, an educational conversation on the Commission for Standards in Public Life, giving you an idea of its background and, of course, its overarching purpose, but also raising some questions in terms of the questionable decisions taken by them, most certainly during the last administration. But to my colleague's point, there were other instances that span maybe even 3 different government administrations. But Ellio, I'll allow you an opportunity to continue.
Yeah, well, and my point is that during the last administration, we can't just say it's one administration because it was divvied up several.
Now I got you.
Yeah, so that's really what I meant.
Mm-hmm.
But again, for clarity,
for that clarification,
this particular committee is there and needs to be autonomous, in my opinion, to be able to do its job properly. And if we don't assure that autonomy, I'm going to assure you that they're not going to do their job. That's just my humble opinion. Either you'll have some people quitting or whatever it is, it's not going to happen. You can't have yourself in the workplace. You're getting paid by your boss. Your salary raises, everything is through that boss. But somehow you're going to hold him accountable. You're going to hold him up by the shirt and tell him, "Hey, you're cutting some crap here."
Yes.
No, I don't think it's going to happen. So,
and, just to your point, certainly the Commission for Standards in Public Life is, well, first of all, it was, I guess, breathed life into by the Constitution in 2009, Section 117 to be precise. But it was followed up on in 2014 with the Standards in Public Life Law, which is now called the Standards in Public Life Act. But
took a long time coming.
It's been a long time coming, exactly. But again, to my colleague's point, it is Cabinet who appoints members. It is Cabinet who obviously chooses the chairman as well as all of the other members. It is Cabinet who has the power to both hire, but as well as fire and replace. And again, to your point, doesn't give this group the anonymity as perhaps what the Auditor General's Act, which we haven't talked about yet, but that's also on the horizon to be moved potentially over the course of the next 4 years. But another example of autonomy is the off-reg law, the utility what do they call it?
Off-reg?
Yeah, off-reg. The law that underpins them, the utility regulation and something law.
Used to be the ICTA law, but it's. I'm pretty sure they've changed the title on that.
Yeah.
So again, on the Standards Public Life Committee, understanding what it is that their responsibility is, holding public servants, including politicians, etc., to be accountable. Let's give some crystal clear examples. So during the last administration, you would have had an issue, and again, I'm just speaking about it general, not trying to highlight individuals here, trying to highlight the facts of what takes place. Yeah. You would have had a transfer of a loan being given for $1.4 million from one person to another. Now, first of all, that is a significant amount of money.
Yes, sir.
Let's just pretend that any politician, all Austin and I got in, and you heard that, I don't know, some business gave one of us a loan for $200,000. You would surely be raising your eyebrow. Well, what would they give you $200,000 loan for?
Exactly.
Well, 1.4 million is even more. So first of all, just the appearance of that, it does not matter how innocent and how legitimate it is. I want you to understand that. It's not even questioning that it was something wrong. It does not matter. It's like, Ellio, this is the wrong time to do this. This is not appropriate. well, Mr. So-and-so, this is not right. So the very appearance of $1.4 million transferring between individuals doesn't look right. You know, as my colleagues say, it doesn't pass the smell test. It smells fishy. And then on top of that, even if you want to go on the sort of strict letter of the law, the transaction should have been registered by the two individuals involved in the transaction. And one registered it and the other one did not. But yet again, that just fizzled off. And all I'm going to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, is that this committee is extremely important. It is important that you have civil servants that are not going to be put in precarious-looking, fishy-looking, fishy-smelling positions where it looks like the public's interest might not be their top priority. Why do you have to put something on the register of interest? Because if I happen to be the owner of, Company X, well, you need to know that I'm the owner of Company X so that when I'm delivering my debates and when I'm doing certain things and I make certain decisions, especially as a minister, you could say, well, that doesn't benefit his company, so I think it's a good thing. Or you could say, wow, that sounds funny. But that could be directly beneficial to his company. You need to know those things. And so when someone registers something that either is not true or fails to register something, that's a big red flag. Mm-hmm. And any money's being passing hands. I want you to understand, it could be a simple gift it could simply be $100 gift.
Yeah.
$100 gift is enough to say, you got $100, but I'll tell you why I think this is funny. Because one, your position is going to be X, Y, and Z, and it just doesn't look right. And it could be $100. And if $100 or $1,000, 10,000 or 200,000 does not look right, I can assure you, 1.4 million or whatever it is doesn't pass the smell test either. So I just give you all of that, hopefully to be able to put it in color, the importance of this particular group. And I'm saying to you that you cannot have it so that a group that is supposed to hold X, Y, and Z accountable, that their tenure, their salary, their stipends, their reputation, everything can be influenced by the same X, Y, and Z person. It's not right.
Indeed.
It needs to be done in the same way we want them to be able to go through a proper process of investigation and rule on the law. And at the same time, they also have to rule on the level of, I don't like the way it looks.
Right. Indeed.
They also have to rule and it just doesn't look right.
Yes.
And the only chance that we have, we are just small enough as a country. Everybody, Tom, Dick, know Hiram. Hiram knows Dick better than, come on. It's a small country. Add on to that now the fact that I have an influence over how long you can stay if you get your stipends, and the list goes on. It's not acceptable in my eyes, and it needs to be modified. Hopefully you all will agree, and maybe we can make some noise about it and send the letter on to the governor and see if Jolo UK can make a change to it.
And certainly, I just want to add to that point, for the point my colleague is making, integrity is one of those, how should we call it, rather particular, if not touchy areas that says, particularly when you're referring to members of parliament, integrity must be done and seen to be done with absolute integrity. And that second part, seen to be done, is, again, what does this look like?
Yeah.
To the average layman, is this transaction, is this activity a little dubious? Does it pass the smell test? Does it make you raise an eyebrow one over the other? Mm-hmm. If you answered yes to any of those, then you are in breach of the principle.
Yeah.
I just want to state that. As it relates to the Standards in Public Life Law 2014, also contained in that legislation was Schedule 2, which outlined 7 principles that the Commission for the Standards in Public Life are obligated to follow and to uphold. Mm-hmm. And again, if we put the transaction between two MPs to a side, but we acknowledge that it doesn't pass the sniff test, nor does it look good, but then we should have been able to count on the Commission for the Standards in Public Life to raise an alarm, to take issue, or perhaps offer some form of guidance. But they did not. And this is where I say that the Standards and Public Life Commission were in breach of at least 2 of the 7 obligations. Number 2, integrity. And integrity is defined, and I'm quoting directly from the law now. Integrity. Persons in public life shall not place themselves under any financial or other obligation to individuals or organizations outside the relevant civil service entity, i.e. the civil service who writes you a check, that might seek to influence them in the performance of their official duties. Now, again, why is that important? Again, politicians are not supposed to draw a check, wages, salary, receive money from anyone outside of the civil service, and that is, of course, the finance department who provides their wages. No one else. Secondly, however, we see here that might seek to influence them in their performance of their official duties. And this is where the smell test becomes apparent. At the time the transaction was occurring, when the last administration, to my colleague's point, was facing one of its many 2, maybe even 3 changes over the course of 4 years, when the then premier was embattled by his own government members, at least behind the scenes. We hadn't gotten to Parliament yet, but we had at least one, albeit failed, motion of no confidence in Parliament prior to this transaction. That failed, and then they had, I think, 2, maybe 3 more over the course of 4 years. But that was swirling in the political climate and environment during this time, and one might ask, okay, if maybe the transaction itself was completely harmless, but from the eyes of the Standards and Public Life Commission, they had to look at their principal objective, number 2, and say, hang on, does this seek to influence one member to be beholden to the other? Should I get involved? We say yes. And the second one is honesty. Honesty, as defined by the Standards in Public Life, says, and I quote directly again from the law, holders of public office have a duty to declare any private interests relating to their public duties and to take steps to resolve any conflicts of interests arising in a way that protects the public interest. Again, in that transaction, there were certain failures in declarations that were not made in the public manner, in the way the law expects it to do, that also were never flagged, were never offered any guidance.
Well, no one got their wrist hit with the ruler.
Yeah, nobody did anything. And maybe if we want to offer forgiveness for the members of the then Standards and Public Life Commission, comes back to your point. This commission is overseen by cabinet, by the very individuals that they would otherwise be flagging, and maybe for fear of maintaining their position, or have an obligation to flag. They chose not to because they enjoyed the lofty position and didn't want to be removed. But again, you see, that is where, whilst the law does not afford the commission anonymity, as the case may be, i.e. to operate independent of cabinet, the core principles in which guides the work of that principle, that does.
Yeah, and I want to pick up on, again, on some of the points that we just made. So, again, when you look at it, you talk about the circumstances that would have been occurring at the time. First and foremost, that transaction did not look good. And again, I'm focusing on the issue. That does not look good. When you now compile that with all the other things that you mentioned, the circumstances, it only gets worse.
Yes.
But bear in mind that you do not necessarily have to have any idea of what will come out of that. You don't have to have an idea as the members of the public, nor does the committee have to concern themselves with, I don't see what happened here. That does not matter. It's irrelevant. And I can show you in a minute why it's totally irrelevant. Because first and foremost, it doesn't look right. Then on top of that, there was a substantive problem from the standpoint that it didn't get registered by one of the individuals involved. That only exacerbates it again, amplifies it. But here's the problem, why you know that this is an issue, and you don't have to concern yourself with what's being achieved. You don't have to do that. You just have to look and say, don't smell right. If what has happened now, ladies and gentlemen, is really the precedent has been set, I don't see how you could stop a large company, I could think of calling a name, but I won't. Company X just gave a loan of $1.6 million to one of our parliamentarians. I mean, come on. We've already accepted it now.
Yes.
It's fine.
Indeed.
Just register it. So really now, you could have a company now that technically gets up and writes everyone a check. I just want to give out some bridge loans. I just want to I'm just helping the guy.
Tell them we get a house.
At what point do we say that this cannot be right? Are you telling me that the blank corporation just gave 3 people in Parliament $1.6 million on a loan?
Yep.
And all they have to do is register it?
Good point.
So we have already set a very not so good precedent.
Dangerous.
A dangerous precedent. Thank you very much for that adjective. I like that one. A very dangerous precedent, ladies and gentlemen, has already been set. And so at the end of the day, this committee is something of great import, and it has to be autonomous. It has to be dealing with persons. I don't care if it's $100 gift and it doesn't look right. It doesn't look right. Because it could just be bad timing. Austin and I could right now be engaging in a business and have a transaction. That little sucker owes me $5,000. Remember, you owe me $5,000, Austin.
Yes, sir.
I'm just joking. Austin doesn't owe me $5,000. But Austin owes me $5,000, and then I run and get elected. Austin, this is not the time to be paying me.
That's right.
Austin, can you just hold that until later? Because it's perfectly innocent. But I might simply say, I don't want to get involved with that right now. It's not gonna look right.
That's right.
It doesn't look right. And so if we would take that level of caution on something small, then definitely on this bigger issue. So one was it didn't smell right. When you couple with that the circumstances surrounding the situation at the time of the loan only made it amplified in terms of it doesn't smell right. And again, you don't have to know where it's going. That's not the objective. And then on furtherance is the matter that it wasn't logged by both parties. And sad for this country, and I really think somebody needs to deal with this issue, because sad for this country, as far as I am concerned, is that the precedent is set, that there's absolutely nothing wrong with anyone giving anyone a loan, at least up to the point of $1.6 million in the parliament.
Yes. Quite right.
I don't see how you can out-argue with any company giving someone $1.6 million loan.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Very good observation.
I mean, after all, we logged it.
We did.
What else are we supposed to do?
And again, some will say this is just really, one of the many symptoms of a larger ailment, and that is the absence of any real accountability. We can give these bodies rather lofty-sounding names like commissions, and we can write some very flowery, if not glossy, language that speaks directly to what the expectations are, but unless they are followed through in action, then really they're not worth the paper.
And from a standpoint of the law,
that is written on the paper.
Sorry, my colleague, but from the standpoint of the law, they should be, all of this investigation, et cetera, should be properly documented. We should be able to do an FOI to get a full breakdown of this particular investigation. But like I said, and I thank my colleague for the great adjective, I think a dangerous precedent has been set, and somebody needs to take some action to rectify it.
Yes.
You cannot possibly tell me that Tom, Dick, and Harry from the United States are down the road, 7 Mile Beach, anywhere. Well, I'm happy to give you a $1.6 million loan. I mean, you just pay me back. And that's the other question. Did they track that? Did the SEAM committee track that in terms of payment back, repayments? Who's doing this?
Right.
And like I said,
just say
it. You can't put a bunch of hens to watch the fox. I don't think that makes sense. And definitely you don't want to put fox to watch hens either, but
no.
Come on.
As the CPA was recommending yesterday from the headlines that we also challenged.
Yeah, now they want to just be able to throw some more dishonest individuals in there.
Right. If accountability was the problem, I got an idea. Let's throw some criminals in the mix. Yeah, sure. They'll get honest.
Yeah.
They've learned their lesson.
And see,
do it again.
All that
they
again.
Promised.
All of that again raises another question, right? Yeah. How much money are you allowed to lend without a license? I mean,
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty good sizable institution, I think, to be lending you that amount of money.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good point. That's another.
You know, like, did you have a license for that, or you operate without a license?
Indeed.
I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, there's what the slogan was on the talk today? There are more questions than answers.
Questions than answers.
More questions than answers.
A lovely little jingle, but it's true.
But a dangerous precedent has been set. You can't possibly allow our parliament to operate that way.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't work in your interest, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
You do not want the people that you have elected to serve you, to make sure that you get your water bill down, your electrical bill down, focusing on you. That's what they should be focusing on.
Indeed.
You can't allow that the person can just get a loan, that might distract them from focusing on you.
Quite right.
And
that last more question and answers is a little tribute to our fellow colleague and friend, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Yeah.
Who is now a PEP, which is where I want to get on to next. We were just talking prior to the Commission on Standards in Public Life. We were talking about the 1,500 or so job ads that were posted at work. Earlier today, Ellio, somebody shared with me, I don't even know what to call it, a commentary.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no idea who the author is. It wasn't necessarily, authored by the person who shared it with me, but you could see that it was a forwarded message. So,
right.
But it was worth a read because this impacts more people than we perhaps give credit for, but certainly directly impacts any person who has ever put themselves forward for elected office, whether they win or lose. It says, the title is The Job I Never Got, Before and After Becoming a PEP. It reads, from as early as I can remember, I dreamed of working for the Cayman Islands government. It runs in my family. Public service has always been part of my DNA. From my father's role in upholding our democracy to my mother's advocacy in healthcare, to my grandmother's fight to secure voting rights for Caymanian women. So naturally, the Cayman Islands government felt like a natural career path.
Mm-hmm.
But life had other plans. I found myself building a career in the private sector and thriving. Still, though, my heart never fully let go of the dream to serve my country through government.
Share your pain.
Every time a job opened that I knew I was qualified for, I applied. Sometimes I made the short list. Most times I was overlooked. And to this day, I don't know why. Was I qualified? Yes. Educated? Absolutely. A hard worker? Without question. Patriotic? 100 times yes. Now, let me be clear. I'm not someone to cry, woe is me, if I'm not qualified and don't get a job. That's life. But I'm speaking to the reality of being repeatedly passed over despite having all the boxes checked. Watching others, some clearly underqualified or benefiting from the merit of someone else's work, rise through the ranks while you stand on the sidelines is disheartening. Then I became a PEP, a politically exposed person. And with that title came an entirely new layer of barriers. I expected some doors to close, but what I didn't expect was how heavy those doors would slam and stay shut. Let me be honest, this isn't a pity piece. I don't regret running in the last election. It was my informed decision, and I stand by it. But what the public rarely sees is what happens after the campaign ends. When the signs come down and the dust settles, there is an unspoken aftermath that candidates face, especially those who aren't elected. The personal and professional real costs of life. I was raised to believe that integrity, hard work, and honesty were the gold standards, that you shouldn't have to compromise who you are to move forward. And maybe that's been my mistake, assuming others believed it too. I'll probably never get a clear answer as to why I was never chosen for a government role. Maybe I should have asked. Maybe I still will. But this is bigger than me. It's about the message we send to Caymanians who dare to challenge the norm, to those who are smart, outspoken, unprincipled and unwilling to play politics in the wrong way. If we say jobs for all Caymanians, we must mean all Caymanians, even the ones who might be more intelligent than their bosses, even the ones who will question decisions, and even the ones who refuse to kiss up or stay silent. Because government, like politics, cannot evolve if it's afraid of fresh ideas or strong voices. Succession planning isn't just a buzzword. It's a necessity. The same faces can't hold the same positions forever. Many are nearing retirement. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to give the next generation, the ones who bring passion, professionalism, and purpose, a chance. And who knows, taking a chance on fresh blood might be exactly what this country needs. Let's hope that shift in mindset spreads, not just in government, but across every sector of our islands. And I found that to be extremely well written and to be littered with pure, unadulterated truth. I want to thank whoever shared it with me, but I more importantly want to congratulate and thank the author for sharing that little golden nugget of useful information that a lot of people either don't know about and even more take for granted.
Absolutely. I know we're almost out of time. How much time do you have left?
Not enough to talk. It's 8:58, 8:59. We got to pause, but we'll be more Straight Talk coming up
right
next.
after.
Bobo.
The BBC is the world's most trusted news source.
And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News.
The world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to talk shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman,
on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News. BBC News. World news from the BBC.
Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive winds.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat.
Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Hello, I'm Moira Alderson with the BBC News. President Trump has announced plans for a 50% tariff on goods from Brazil from the start of next month, amid an escalating row with Brazil's left-wing leader, Lula da Silva. In a letter to him, Mr. Trump criticised the treatment of the former president, Jair Bolsonaro, who's on trial for an alleged coup attempt. Here's Michelle Fleury.
There is significantly higher than the level that was proposed back on April 2nd, so-called Liberation Day, where Brazil was facing a tariff rate of 10%. What is so striking about this is that you're seeing Donald Trump trying to effectively use tariffs to intervene in a criminal case in a foreign country, and it really shows how he's prepared to use these kind of duties kind of lots of different purposes, not just trade. And of course, Lula da Silva has already responded pretty rapidly, basically saying that he thought it was wrong and irresponsible for a president to be threatening others on social media.
Donald Trump has said the United States is shifting from aid to trade in its relationship with Africa as he welcomed 5 presidents from the continent to the White House. He said new economic opportunities for America and Africa were now being forged. The United States is imposing sanctions on the UN Human Rights Council Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese, an outspoken critic of Israel's military offensive in Gaza. Tom Bateman has this report.
Marco Rubio said the US was sanctioning Francesca Albanese for directly engaging with the International Criminal Court in its efforts to prosecute American or Israeli nationals, accusing her of being unfit for service as a UN Special Rapporteur. Mr. Rubio also accused Ms. Albanese of having spewed unabashed anti-Semitism, expressed support for terrorism and open contempt for the United States, Israel and the West. The move is likely to provoke a fierce backlash from those who argue for accountability over the civilian death toll from Israel's military offensive in Gaza.
A court in South Korea has issued a new arrest warrant for the former president Yoon Suk-yeol over his brief imposition last year of martial law. He was first arrested in January following a lengthy standoff, but was released later. Grant Ferret reports.
Mr. Yoon's failed attempt in December to impose martial law temporarily destabilised his country and marked the beginning of the end of his presidency. He's since been impeached and is now standing trial for alleged insurrection. If found guilty, he could face life imprisonment or even, in theory, the death penalty. His lawyers had opposed his rearrest, describing it as excessive. But the prosecution said there was a risk that he could destroy evidence if he remained free. Mr. Yoon was taken to a detention centre outside Seoul to hear the court's ruling.
Grant Ferret reporting. BBC News. Britain and France say they're to improve nuclear cooperation and are ready to mount a joint nuclear response in the event of an extreme military threat. In a joint declaration coinciding with the current visit to Britain by the French President Emmanuel Macron, they say that any adversary threatening Europe's vital interests could be confronted by the nuclear forces of both nations. The declaration forms part of a defence cooperation agreement, including the development of a new generation of missiles. The European Union naval force operating in the Red Sea says 19 crew members from a cargo ship attacked off the coast of Yemen are still unaccounted for. 3 are believed to have been killed. The Greek-operated vessel Eternity Sea came under sustained assault by Houthi fighters on Monday. The US Embassy in Yemen said the Houthi fighters had kidnapped surviving crew members. President William Ruto of Kenya says recent deadly anti-government protests amount to terrorism and a declaration of war. Mr. Ruto vowed to use whatever means necessary to ensure stability. He said those involved in Monday's violence should be shot in the legs. Here's Anne Soy.
We can sense the increasing frustration by the president because he's tried every rule in the book that has been used by previous presidents to try and quell the protests, but it hasn't worked. But also he has used a huge crackdown on the protesters, police shooting live rounds as well as tear gas to try and stop the protests. But it only increases that anger.
The chief executive of X, Linda Yaccarino, has abruptly quit after 2 years in charge of Elon Musk's social media platform. She gave no reason, saying the job had been the opportunity of a lifetime. Her departure was announced just a day after Mr. Musk's AI firm faced a public outcry over posts praising Adolf Hitler by its chatbot, Grok. BBC News.
Opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM, where the time in studio is now 7 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock as we move into our final segment of the day. But the phone lines remain open. 745-2626 is the number. Or you can reach out to us on our WhatsApp line, 928-2562. And Ellio, my friend, we received 2 WhatsApp messages to our Straight Talk number during the break. The first says this: good evening, guys. It seems and sounds like in the political arena, there is evidence that these things can happen without any accountability and there is no violation. Here is evidence that these people and their actions is that they think they have the unofficial diplomatic immunity. When the cat's away, the mice will play. I just want to thank you guys and encourage you to keep shining the light in those dark corners. Blessings to you both. And we thank you very much for those comments. Indeed, and thank you for being a regular listener. Another writer says, great show. Just a few things. First of all, members of the commission are formed under the Constitution, are appointed by the governor following consultation with the premier and leader of the opposition. They're not appointed by cabinet. And second, lending is unregulated in the Cayman Islands. Banking, after all, is only defined by deposit taking, not by lending. Well, I just want to answer the first part, and I'll leave the second part for my colleague. Yes, whilst the Standards in Public Life law written in 2014 does state in Part 2, subsection 4, and I quote, as prescribed by the Constitution, the governor shall, after let me try that again. As prescribed in the Constitution, the governor shall, after consulting the premier and the leader of the opposition, appoint from among persons of high integrity and with experience in the public and private sector, the Commission for Standards in Public Life comprising, and they go down the list. I just want to state that when you read laws that uses the phrase, the title, the governor, there's one thing to write it, but in terms of how these laws are applied in actual practice, the governor refers to the governor in cabinet. So in this case, the governor sits in cabinet, but he sits there amongst other cabinet members. The only one not in cabinet is the leader of the opposition, which is why the leader is asked to obviously be consulted in having that decision. But again, cabinet is involved. It also goes on to point out further on in the law, if I can just say, I think it's section 6, very quickly. Let's find it. Nope. Let's go back to it. Part 6, appointment, responsibilities, compensation of boards of government, companies, statutory boards, authorities, and public authorities. I just want to say that whilst this may carry the flashy name of commission, in terms of the law, there's still another government board. And that government board, like all government board, are appointed and presided over by cabinet.
Yeah, and just one quick question. Does it say, did you say in terms of consultation? Can you just read that line in consultation?
Yes, sure. Let's go back to it. That was, hang on, I'll give it for you. Yes. As prescribed in the Constitution, the governor shall, after consulting the premier and the leader of the opposition, appoint from among persons of high integrity.
Okay, you can draw the breaks right there. I just want to highlight for that individual that very important word shall.
Yes.
Which means must.
Yes.
You must consult these persons before you make the decision. Just that in itself should tell you something.
Yes.
It's not like you can go and do whatever you want to do. Just you must consult with them first.
Yes.
Why? Why, I ask. But either way, on the issue that he raised about, or he or she, I don't know who it is, raised on the issue about banking or loans or whatever not being, what was it?
Yeah, the bank. Hang on, I want to not miss it.
Yeah.
It's come on now, work with me.
Work with me, baby.
Lending is unregulated in the Cayman Islands.
Lending is unregulated. The good gentleman or good lady says.
Banking is defined by deposit taking, not.
And I would imagine that they raised that issue somewhat, again, not necessarily in the sort of local colloquialism, but somewhat in defense of the transaction that took place. $1.4 million loan, or sorry, 1.6, being properly informed, 1.6 being loan. He says that the lending area is not being regulated. Well, here's an article from 23rd of September 2015. A man who ran an unlicensed money lending business was sentenced to 3 months imprisonment on Tuesday for operating a business without a trade and business license. Magistrate Angeline Hernandez referred Leroy Armstrong Henry money lending as a loan shark business. She called it a scourge on any society, especially in Cayman. which has strict laws governing financial transactions. She acknowledged the usual starting point in fixing sentence would be a financial penalty, while the charge itself might not seem serious. The circumstance of offending and the defendant's record were serious, she emphasized. The court has to send a clear message that criminal activity, even under the trade and business license law, will not be encouraged, she said. Henry, 38, pleaded guilty to operating his business between September and October 2013 and January-April 2014. He made loans of no millions, sorry. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. He made loans not of 1.6 million. He made loans of between 400 and 1,000.
But still end up going to jail.
Ladies and gentlemen, come on. Yeah. Come on now. If we're gonna, you see, this is why again, and other people get upset. You know what? One thing good for the goose, one good for the gander. If this poor little fella, is out there, listen, he's not stealing, I mean, not stealing, Hold on. You want $400 I lend you, but you gotta give him a little interest. But no, he can't get away with that. But hey, it's quite all right for our parliamentarians to transact with 1.6 million. And again, nobody's following up. What's the interest rate here?
Right.
Were these payments made? Were the repayments made? I mean, nothing.
Yeah.
But poor Leroy went to prison for $400,000.
For real.
No, ladies and gentlemen, you need to have the same laws that exist for everyone. And I will just end by saying what I started off with. That committee needs to have as much autonomy as possible so that they can do their jobs. And it shouldn't have to be, in this case, if we want to hail the governor as something independent, it doesn't have to be that they must consult the cabinet. No, absolutely nothing to do with you. Mm-hmm. In fact, these are the people to watchdog over you. Mm-hmm. What do I have to talk to you for? So you can put one of your friends there? No. Bottom line is, at the end of the day, they're the watchdog, and it needs to be autonomous, and we need to give them that autonomy if we're going to expect them to do the job. But in recap, let's be clear as we color all the little spaces. $1.6 million loan in the government between two individuals, and compiling on top of that the circumstances involved, the surrounding circumstances, as we would say, only makes it smell worse. Doesn't improve the smell. And then when we couple that one registered on the register of interest as they should have and the other one did not, it only makes it smell worse. Mm-hmm. And bottom line is, nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened. And I say to you that really sounds to me that a precedent is set. Parliamentarians can lend each other that money, and one could now argue that how are you going to argue if a business is also lending a politician, a member of parliament? After all, it's just a loan.
Right.
And we saw from this article in 2015 that this individual need to have a trade and business license to lend $400 or $1,000.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to believe that if you need to have a license for $400 or $1,000, shouldn't we need it for 1.4 million? 1.6?
1.6
million.
million.
Where I get this?
You would think so, my friend.
I know I get this 1.4.
The sign on the door says straight talk. You don't have to like it, but you do have to accept it because it is the facts.
The street.
It is straight talk. Indeed. As our good friend who calls up, and I don't care who don't like it, but it's the truth. The truth stands on its own merit. It needs no approval.
So for all of my fellow Caymanians who enjoy having a good think about things, as we should, because governance is very important. The system and the rules and the games that we set up is very important. And if we don't do something about it, we'll be having every Tom, Dick, and Harry that lands on the island, that wants to build a hotel or that wants to run a bridge under the, cut the island in half, whatever. They might just be giving out loans. And I mean, after all, who could argue? Yeah. Apparently, it would seem, as it relates to the parliamentarians, trade and business license are not required. And even if you go without registration, is argument not required. And who the hell gives a damn how fishy it smells?
Yeah, indeed. That is the message it carries.
It's not a good message.
It is not a good message in the least. 17 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock is the time, and we'll give or take with the 15 or so minutes that we have remaining.
You want to cut me off now? Go ahead, cut me off now, Austin.
I figured you were done when you...
You hear what I say? You know, every time I want to talk, it's a break, right?
It's a break. Yeah.
No, you want a break, right? You want to cut me off now?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. I'm just joking.
Go ahead.
But, you know, I want to discuss tomorrow this whole issue, again, with this, and again, pardon me, I mean no disrespect to the family, our families, but in this case with Miss Julianne Miles and Mr. What was it? Andre Harris.
Yeah.
I really, it befuddles me how the police was able to make an announcement that there were no third-party involvement, but yet it had not went through the process of the coroner's office.
Mm-hmm.
When, as far as I know, I mean, I stand to be elucidated, you know. But as I understand it, the process has to be that the only body that can determine the cause of death, in fact, can confirm who the individual was and the cause of death, is the coroner's office.
Yeah.
So until it goes to the coroner's office, you don't know. It has not been legally processed and decided that this person died from poisoning, died from flames, or what. You don't know. So I don't know. It just seems to be a little bit, and I have one or two of these family members up in the police. Maybe I gotta ask them. But like I said, I stand to be elucidated. But it sounds to me a little bit rushed. Sounds a little bit preemptive.
Indeed.
And I'm not even saying that their inferences, let's not even say assumption. I'm not even saying that their inferences are incorrect. Mm-hmm. But just from a purely process standpoint, I think it seems to me like it's something a little bit rushed. It should be, if anything, you're making a comment that would say our preliminary investigations does not lead us to infer that a third party was involved. But we don't know this. We can't say this until we go through something.
Correct.
But at least from what I'm hearing, it doesn't again pass the smell test. It sounds interestingly
dubious.
Yeah, sounds a little funny.
Yes, indeed.
And I just think we need to clarify that, because we have these processes for a reason, you know. I would like to believe that we're not making up processes just to have processes, although we do have that sometimes, even down to the fast food restaurants. They can't figure out that you could put 4 pieces in that chicken inside that box. It'd be creative. And while we're on that, let me just digress, Austin. Have you ever been to one of these drive-thrus where you say, I'd like to have 3 stars spicy. And before you can get it out, sorry, we don't have that. And then you just say something like, and this happens every time. He just says something like, why don't you just give me what you want to give me? I'm tired of coming here and asking for what I want.
Silly me.
Just pull up at the drive-thru and just say, why don't you give me what you feel like giving me tonight? So either way.
You said on your slogan, have it your way. You're right. I think they were referring to you, not me.
So either way, I digress. Back on it, in the same way, ladies and gentlemen, we have the process.
Oh, brother.
We have the process for a reason. And amongst other things, there is a matter that when this legal process goes through, everybody's given testimony, the fire people, that this process must take place, that when it's finished, everyone, and particularly the family, should feel that everything has been done and is prim and proper, and somebody's saying this is indeed the cause of death, and this is where the evidence leads us and doesn't lead us. And I have to say, it gets worse to me. And honestly, I don't like being in the position to do this, but this is my job, right? It gets even worse with me on this Andre case, because I don't see how you draw these conclusions and you don't even have a body.
Quite right. Well, that was the only point I wanted to make. You know, in the large context of things, the argument applies in the first instance to the late Miss Julianne Miles, but in Andrell Harris's case, you can't even say this.
Yeah, I mean,
at all.
I don't know. I am not faced with all this, circumstantial evidence, but I would like to. I hope it's real firm, because to me, as long as arguably there's a body missing, it's almost to the point that you have to say this case has to remain open. Mm-hmm. We don't have a body.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
and in the police,
I'm working on my half-day schooling in law
and in
on
the
Fridays.
Defense, they did state, as it relates to Mr. Harris, that the matter is still an open investigation, But to your point, to make
they ruled out a third party, right?
Exactly. To make a definitive statement to suggest that they have ruled out any third party involvement, to your point, in the absence of a body, how can you make that?
And but then again, why would you have the case open if you've already ruled that there's no third party? Open for what?
Yeah, indeed. By misadventure, perhaps, who knows? But certainly in the case of late Julianne Miles, there are questions there. And I believe I even saw, if it was over the weekend or maybe it was this week, I lose track. But somebody did make, I think, the keen observation in the past when there are, to your point, the perceived rush to judgment. And again, we're not saying that's the case. We hope it is as open and shut as the police would otherwise have us believe. I hope the evidence that they have in their possession is so sound that they can legitimately make such a claim that there was no third party. Again, in the absence of the body, in one instance, we ask how. But certainly to the case of the former, someone said, when we have had questionable policing decisions, usually somebody follows up with a commission of inquiry. And usually that commission inquiry includes the manner in which the police investigation itself was conducted, as well as obviously what led to that investigation being required in the first place. But we don't have that either in these two untimely deaths. And it really doesn't bring any closure to the parents, I would imagine, and certainly not from the standpoint of the public. Do you feel any safer with this knowledge than you did perhaps when you first learned of the incident? Well, the answer is no, you don't. And again, to give a blanket statement that they believe there is no third-party involvement, then one just has to ask how. And to your point, it hasn't gone to the coroner's office yet.
Yeah.
So how can we say so? Again, we offer up the addendum that the police did have the benefit of foreign pathologists who came in and provided their report. So presumably that foreign pathologist, forensic pathologists, because the coroner is also a pathologist as well. One might argue that both have the same academic discipline or acumen, and undoubtedly they don't believe that the forensic pathologists would have or had arrived at a end conclusion that may be different than what the coroner will. But to your point, the coroner has not yet. So maybe it would have been wise to at least wait.
Well, there was another question
after the coroner stepped in.
There was another question that jumped out at me there, right? I think doing the math, it was something like 98 days or something had passed. Which is a significantly long period of time. And you said, why 98 days before it goes to the coroner's office? I mean, is there some backlog that we're unaware of? Again, just some questions, just something, to tickle your brain.
Sure.
Because you got nothing else to think about.
No, absolutely.
But it is something that just leaves me a little bit unsettled. And again, I don't want to say anything that in any way they are all cast a negative light on the police. I'm sure that we have some awesome persons in there and working hard and doing their investigations, and I have a lot of respect for majority of them that I know. And that's not my intention, but I can't do justice to myself or to the listening public to not raise these concerns.
No, absolutely.
Where is the backlog that takes almost 100 days before it goes to the coroner, to go to an inquest? And how are we able to make these pronouncements so definitively when it hasn't gone to the inquest yet? And I thought that was part of the process. Please elucidate me if I am wrong.
Indeed.
And again, like I've said on Mr. Harris, I mean, it's, I don't want to say Harris because that's my friend Harris. Andrell, it's like, I don't know. There's nobody. So I see even more challenges there, but either way.
No, absolutely. It's a good question. And again, I take it a step further. When we ask the question, how confident are you that the decision or the response or the findings of the police in this instance, does it bring you comfort? I think it doesn't. And when we consider that these two latest mysterious deaths are just two in a long line of mysterious deaths that have been investigated, albeit still no final determination made. We think of Anna Evans. We think of the teacher Nathan Clark. We think of the infamous cinder block that was found on 7 Mile Beach with handcuffs concreted to it. Presumably, there was an arm in those handcuffs at some stage. At some
point, yeah.
But again, no definitive investigation that would otherwise put the public's mind at ease. And I will just mention one final one. Though nobody died in this action, it also doesn't pass the smell test. And that is, again, the reported amount of cocaine that simply got up and walked out of a secure police lockup within the secure razor-wired police facility. And we read about it. It was reported on it, but it just sort of died a quiet death with no follow-up. And it all lends itself to leaving the public with a sense of confidence, which is why I look at that, quality of life survey, and I believe that was largely written by foreign nationals, because a lot of them, 80% of them said, we feel good with the police level of police here. Of course you do. You're as far removed from police activity.
Are you suggesting they may have been speaking to the conquerors instead of the conquered?
Clearly. But that is all the time we have for you today. But I encourage you to tune in for more Straight Talk tomorrow and again on Friday with yourself, my colleague Ellio Solomon, and myself, Austin Harris, right here.
The home of the BBC World Service.